Welcome to DD on the Spot. As always, this is your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I introduce my guest here today, I need to do a quick little shout out to Twin Cities Chimney Sweeps. They offer full chimney service company and offer air duct cleaning and dryer vent cleaning services as well. And they're based in Eagan, Minnesota and serve the entire metro area. You can contact them at 651-399-2759 or visit their website at twincitieschimneysweeps.com. All right. And my guest here today is Dillon from the Synthwave. Dillon, how you doing?
I'm doing really good today. Thanks for asking.
All right, so why don't you just give us a little bit of backstory, how you got started in music, what inspired you, and kind of like what the influences of your band are?
Okay. I started playing the drums when I was 5, just banging on some little kid-style drum kit, and I started taking drums more seriously when I was 12. I started playing drumline, marching band, and jazz band throughout high school. I took it a little bit more seriously in junior college, taking some music theory classes. And then from the age of 16 on to now the age of 26, I've spent the last 10 years developing 6 or 7 bands, developing a record label, and developing this band called the Synthwave, which is my version of the genre, the Synthwave, and I'm hoping to be the mecca of the entire genre.
Oh, that's nice. So tell us, how did you come up with the name Synthwave? Because that is the genre. How did that name come about?
Yeah. It was kind of arrogance, really. I just wanted people to think of the band, the Synthwave, when they think of the genre. And in order for me to successfully achieve that, I have to write the best Synthwave songs. And I aim to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you also tell us a little bit about your record company? Because we have not had someone who's made their own record company. I mean, that just, to our viewers, I think they'd really like to know, like, how you get started in your record company. Like, what are you looking for also in, like, bands for your record company?
The first thing as far as creating a record company goes is figuring out what does a record label offer? What do they even do? I started with Google and I looked up a few fundamental things. They offer distribution. They offer creating album artwork. They offer creating a logo. They offer creating branding. They offer helping you create with merchandise. They offer pressing your CDs. They offer getting you publicity and people to talk about your CDs and your music and your songs and getting you interviews. They have a recording studio for you to record all your music in. They have money to back you. And they have the resources to put you on tour. And after I went through and diving on everything, I either found that I met all of those requirements because my primary function is a mortgage loan officer. So I'm licensed in the state of California to do business as a mortgage loan officer. That's my day job.
Yeah.
That's what I do as a career path to make, money for my family and for myself. And I also use this money that I make to invest into my record label. And anything that I found that a record label could offer that I didn't have, I just worked on achieving. Mm-hmm. And eventually I came to the point where I could offer anything and everything that a record label could offer, just on a much smaller scale, but still do everything DIY. And then also show bands that don't have any clue where to go on where to start and how to build yourself up to the point where a major record label can look at you and take you seriously and treat you like you're treating yourself seriously. Mm-hmm. And so I created that roadmap. I created 6 different bands under my own record label. Wow. So I can showcase, this is my strategy. This is how I want to succeed. This is my game plan. And then after I make my 6 bands succeed very well, I've already had a lot of success with 2 of them, Inertia being the most popular with millions of plays so far.
Wow.
After all 6 are very successful, then I'll be able to showcase to other bands who need help, hey, this is what I've done by myself. Let me show you how you can do something kind of like this too by yourself. My job that I created for myself is to help these bands who I feel are disenfranchised, don't really have the right direction, and I also feel like are being manipulated and taken advantage of by a lot of the people who work in the music industry today.
Yeah. So how do you find these bands? Do you go to like local shows, or do you just look up bands? Like, what is the recruitment process for your label?
I just go to local shows, and if I see a band that's killing it live and looks and sounds like they're trying, I just start a conversation. I'm just Hollow Records sounds like a fancy record label, but really it's just me at the end of the day, and I'm just a person like everyone else.
Yeah. So, what would you say to someone who's maybe looking to start their own record label? What would you say is probably the biggest struggle starting out?
Start with one band first and make it successful. If you can do that, duplicate it. First step is to figure out what it takes to make a band successful. So you cover your basis, like I talked about earlier. Your branding, logo, artwork, photos, lineup, playing, having someone to play all the instruments or learning how to play all the instruments yourself, covering all your foundation. And then once you have your foundation covered, then you push for success. And if you find that success, then it's possible for you to duplicate that process with multiple bands. And if you can do that process with multiple bands, either via being in them yourself, or because you're outgoing enough to get and convince other bands who are around you to work with you and team up with you on your record label, you can go that route too. I didn't want to go that route because I didn't want people to put faith in me without me proving myself first. So I learned how to play every instrument myself: drums, guitar, bass, vocals, piano, and I just do everything myself. I write or co-write all the music with talented people in the studio, and then I write all the vocals and sing everything and record all the instruments and get everything done. And then once it's done and ready to be released, then I release it and hope for success. And then again, if I find that success, then I'll be more confident in offering my services to other bands. Right now I'm accepting submissions from all sorts of bands all over the place, all over the world. But right now, as it stands, every band on my record label, all 6 bands, I'm a member of. And they're all bands that I'm in. So it's not like there's any new there's not any new bands that I'm not in at all that are part of my record label yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've interviewed 3 bands prior to this, and I can definitely, if you want, I can definitely give them a link to this podcast, or they're probably already subscribed, so they definitely check it out, and then I could give them their information if they wanted. So, yeah. So, when you said you learned all the instruments, how long did it take you to learn all the instruments? Because that seems like a really trying affair.
It's still ongoing now. I'm still learning as it goes. I mean, I've been playing since I was 5. I started with drums, and I find that it was kind of a blessing that I started with the drums, because that percussive element carries over in every single other instrument. Because there's one thing that carries over the most for me, it's time. My timing is very strong as a drummer, because that's our primary job, is to be in control of time and to set the tempo for the song for every other musician to follow along to. And so I found that bass and guitar and piano and even vocals had a lot of percussive elements to them. Like, for example, vocals has vocal patterns, and vocal patterns are just like drum patterns. And I could really correlate and relate to that really easily. So I excelled at writing really interesting vocal patterns right away when I first started singing, because I understood patterns already from drums and from studying, patterns in drums. So I just carried those patterns over into vocals, put vocal notes over it, singing over those same patterns, and ta-da, all of a sudden you're a good sounding singer, and all you did was sing the right note in key and throw that over a drum pattern that you were playing when you were a teenager, and it sounds great. And then piano is kind of the same way, and then guitar is kind of the same way, and bass is kind of the same way. There's a lot of elements from each instrument that carry over, so it doesn't feel like when I pick up a new instrument, it's not as though I have never played an instrument before and I'm picking it up. It very much makes a huge impact on your ability to absorb the information of playing a musical instrument when you already know how to play another one.
Yeah, absolutely. I always said that, like, being a drummer was definitely like the backbone to the band. I mean, they're kind of underappreciated in that sense. They're the ones responsible for all that stuff. And I always wanted to be a drummer too, because I have ADD, so it's just the being just constantly in motion or whatever, and just being in beat really, really suited me well. So, what would you say is your signature sound? I mean, I know it's synthwave, but like, what type would you say? Like, you have a different, like, out of synthwave, there are definitely probably like different genres of like how synthwave sounds. What would you say is your particular sound?
I think rock and metal is
Yeah.
probably where I come from the most. I actually come from death metal.
Oh
Death
yeah.
metal is where my roots are in. You wouldn't know that listening to the synthwave. It's throwback pop
Yeah.
with pretty singing and harmonies, but I come from death bands on Hollow Records, like Modus Operandi, for example, and I Magnified. Those are death metal and technical death metal bands.
Oh, nice.
So that's where my roots started, and I later on got interested in pop and electronic music and things that were easier to listen to than yelling into a microphone.
Yeah, because I was gonna say we just had a metal band on here, and I was just told I was always asking the guy, what is it with that just screaming your voice? And he says, well, that's because I'm not really that good of a singer, so I just had to scream. So I figured that would be the one way. So I said, hey, whatever you got to do to make it work, I guess. So when it came to metal, what was your inspiration for metal?
So when I first got started, I got started with Metallica, probably like
Yes.
everyone else. But immediately after Metallica was Pantera, Megadeth, and this is going to surprise a lot of people, Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir, both theatrical
Yeah.
black metal bands.
Yeah.
Those were like the best bands for me. And one of the reasons I enjoyed Cradle of Filth so much was because the lyrics were beautiful to read along to and so complex, interesting, and thought-provoking. And then the orchestrations and like the choir vocals, those made the songs awesome.
Yeah.
And then at the time I was like drumming a lot of metal drumming stuff, and Cradle of Filth has a lot of extremely awesome metal drumming songs. So between all of those different key points of interest in the band for me, I really fell in love, and I consider Cradle of Filth probably one of the biggest influences on my musical career, even though it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I've said this before on the podcast, but the one song that really kind of got me into listening to metal music, I heard Master of Puppets when I was like 12 years old, Metallica, and that's just one of those songs where it just hits you hard just right in the beginning, and you're just like, what the hell is this? So, yep, absolutely. So how long were you in a metal band?
Still am.
Oh, you still
10
are?
years.
Yep. Okay, now I got to ask, how difficult is that for you to be in multiple genres at once? Does it does it also help the creative process because like you know how to write music in different genres, so yeah,
it's easier. I would get bored if I was only playing one genre.
Yeah.
And eventually, like, my goal is to write a top 100 song in every genre.
Yeah.
And I've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
I haven't even written the top 100 songs in any genre yet, but I that's my goal.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you got a band that has millions of views on their thing, or has even 1 million views, I mean that's a strong enough base to start to launch you guys. I mean, what did you say the name of the band was that had the millions of views?
Inertia.
Inertia. Okay, I'll definitely write that down, and I'll definitely make sure. I'll
the
definitely write that down.
The website is inertiatherockband.com.
Oh, okay, inertiatherockband.com. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely write that down. I'll make sure to mention it, too, at the end of the podcast just to make sure that everyone's got that because it sounds good. All right, so now we'll go back to the synthwave. So, you have 2 songs that I listened to, Remember the Summer and Purple. Now, when I said, I'll tell a little funny story for the podcast listeners that we originally scheduled this interview for noon, and I originally thought that this was going to be noon my time, but little did I know that he's from California, so we had a little bit of a mix-up there, so we had to wait 2 hours. But he had a song, Purple, which is a tribute to Prince, so I obviously thought he was from Minnesota. But could you tell us a little bit more about Purple, your song? Obviously it was a Prince tribute, but what about Prince really inspired you to write a tribute song about him?
Well, he had passed away. So... And right around the same time that he passed away was around the same time that I was falling in love with bands like The Midnight, Gunship, Time Cop, and other bands that are like that in the synthwave genre. And I just felt like, thinking back on Prince and that he had passed away, that his music probably was one of the greatest influences on the synthwave genre, because I feel he was one of the most I really feel this way. I feel like he was one of the most prevalent musician rock stars, like icons in the 80s, and like during that time when like where synthwave is throwing back and like nodding to and hearkening to the 80s, right? And so when I think of 80s, like Prince is like one of those people like I like on the top of my list think of.
Yeah.
And he died. And so I wanted the first synthwave song to be like a nod and like to almost like pay my respects in any way I could to a man who I felt had such a huge impact on the genre that it is today.
Yep.
And so I want everyone to know that as synthwave starts its battle to become the mecca of the genre, the synthwave, and as we try to tour and play all the instruments live instead of just being a DJ band and trying to really bring this music to life, I want the roots of this project to recognize where synthwave came from. Yeah. And I think Prince is that. Absolutely. And that's what the song is supposed to be in respects to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I have a quick little story to share then I think that our listeners would like. So I'm from Bloomington, Minnesota. It's like it's on close to the border of Wisconsin, about an hour to the east, I'd say, is Wisconsin. But when Prince died, I remember I was driving to a bagel shop. It announced it on the news, and then my mom was like texting me being like, oh my God, they found a guy at Paisley Park. It's Prince. All of a sudden, they played Purple Rain on the radio, and then it actually did start to rain when I was driving. It was the most surreal thing when I heard that. It was just...
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, obviously Prince is so special to like everyone with his musical talent, but I just think to Minnesota, he's especially up there because he decided to stay in Minnesota. I mean, everyone knows Minnesota with winters, you don't want to be here. So he decided to stick around, and he had a place here. He could have like lived out in California. He could have done all that, but he decided to stay. So I mean, he always has a special place in our hearts. So what do you think specifically synthwave has to do in order to make it into the mainstream?
I think that I need to first keep releasing singles like I have been. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a lyric video for each song that comes out, a 3D lyric video. So people, as the brand becomes more popular and people become more aware of the songs, I want these people to be familiar with the lyrics. Mm-hmm. I want these songs to be sung along to. Yeah. After I have about 100,000 plays on all of my songs released up to that point, after there's about 8 songs released, mm-hmm. then I'll book a tour to announce and release an album. I'll release a 10-song album or something like that. Yeah. And I'll have the 8 singles on it up to that point, plus a couple new ones and then maybe a bonus. And I might work with a couple other synthwave artists to maybe guest feature on a song or two or something like that to make it really exciting for the entire synthwave community and not just exciting for people who like my band, the Synthwave. Yeah. So the next step after that would be to book that tour and either play by myself or with a group of 1 to 2 extra individuals where I'm playing guitar and vocals and either all the instruments by myself or a bunch of them, and combining my ability to play multiple instruments with backing tracks and looping pedals. And I can play everything by myself and perform that live. And I have pretty much all the equipment to do so. I have nearly all of it for the recording studio. The recording studio has all of it already, and I have nearly all of it to render this live. I'm missing certain light show pieces and certain outfits that I want to set up, mm-hmm. and certain accent points that I think are really going to draw a lot of hype to the show. But I need to make the synthwave a lot more popular before we even play. So we have a long way to go. Yeah. But I already have a strategy for what we're going to do at that point when we have about 800,000 plays between all 8 songs, release a record, do a tour, and show that the synthwave isn't just supposed to be a record to be listened to. Mm-hmm. This is a band and a brand that you can really believe in and hope to write new music because they're not just people with a computer in a room. Yeah. These are people who can actually play the music and play it live and tour it worldwide. And so if I can show that I can play this music, especially if I could do it by myself or just with a couple people, I think that'll create a wow factor to the music, because not every musician out there has even the talent to play every single instrument. Mm-hmm. So I think that could be a good press point or like a talking point for people to talk about, and it might draw attention to certain media. I'm not sure yet. I can only hope for the best. Yeah. But those are my intentions, and I do think it's a unique element that could help the brand stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it goes to planning a tour, what exactly does that entail? Like, how do you do you just get in contact with the venues and then ask for their availabilities, or do they get in contact with you and then like you just start booking shows? Do you kind of like have a set schedule with you, or do you just kind of wing it and just decide like what venues are going to be open, and how do you pick your venues? Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we do all of that. So just to make things clear, most of the time when we're booking a tour, what we'll do is we'll plot out where we want to go. Then we'll plot out the equipment we're going to use to get there: bus, van, sprinter, SUV with a trailer, like you name it. We're going to go through it and figure out how we're going to get to these destination points, how far the destination points are from each other. And then we're going to calculate gas and expenses. And then after we calculate gas and expenses, then we're going to take a look at our social media numbers. So our social media numbers will give us an indication of where our fans are at so we can market to them. Mm-hmm. So right now, for example, Inertia's #1 listened to city, I think right now, is Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I think we have something like 580 daily listeners. Wow. Different unique listeners that listen to our music every day. Yeah. So if I were to plot a tour, one of my first dates would probably be a Los Angeles date. Mm-hmm. And then what I would do at that date is I would market to those people in Los Angeles, because I know that there's already an X number of people who listen to our music and listen to our songs at least once or more, or potentially on a daily basis in that area. So if I market to these people, these are going to be the people that are most likely to go, oh, I'll go to that show, rather than some stranger who has never even heard of your music before. Yeah. It's just so unlikely that someone who has never even heard of your band before, or what your band is, or what your genre is, or whether or not they like you, or your type of the genre, or this, that, and the other, they're just not likely to go to the show if they're not familiar with anyone on the bill. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of how it is, especially these days with marketing as good as it is. If you have a bunch of shows offered to you and you're like, oh, I know that band, I know that band, I know that band, you're going to go to those shows, and you're not going to go to the ones with shows of bands you don't know. Yeah. So it would be really important to focus on playing in the areas where fans are already at least somewhat familiar with your music. And you can tell online that the numbers are all available for you. Spotify gives it to you. Facebook gives it to you. All the different social media platforms will tell you what cities you're very popular in. Another one is for us is San Diego, Chicago. The list goes on, and it's worldwide. But I would plot those tour points based on where my fans are. I would go to where most of my fans are first and try to plot points around that. After I figured out where all my fans were, I would maybe circle in red on a map where all my fans are at. And then I would draw a line and create like the tour. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I need to go from here to here. And then after you make those plot points, then you can calculate the gas and expenses. After you calculate the gas and expenses, then you can contact venues in the regions of that area. Based on your expenses, you can figure out the minimum number of cost per ticket you need to charge when you go on tour, and the minimum number of people you need to attend your show to make the tour work. So if you figure a West Coast to East Coast tour is probably going to cost about, I don't know, $50,000 to $80,000 in gas if you're driving in a bus. Wow. So in order to make that work, you would have to figure out how many people you need to play in front of, at what ticket price you're comfortable selling the tickets at to recoup your costs and make a profit. Mm-hmm. And then you go from there, and then you hopefully at that point make sure that you're not touring unless you have CDs and a bunch of merchandise for you to sell. Because the reality is, if you're hitting a tour, you're going to be most likely lucky to recoup all of your expenses from the venues, and you're not going to make any profit after recouping those expenses. Yeah. Your only opportunity to really recoup from expenses is from your brand awareness increasing and hopefully people buying your stuff online, which frankly don't prey on that. Yeah, exactly. And selling merchandise online. Mm-hmm. Now, you will have some success online as you have success on tour, and you will see increase in numbers and what have you. But because Spotify and iTunes are so greedy, they're sharing like 0.08 or less of a cent per play. So it takes a long time for you to actually recoup anything. In addition to that, every time you do get paid, they make you wait 90 days before they pay you on it, because that's how long their payroll takes.
Jeez, that's ridiculous. Did iTunes used to be better with paying artists through money? Because I remember there was that whole scandal with, I think it was like Taylor Swift or something, where she was talking about how they weren't getting paid their fair share. Did it used to be better, but then they all of a sudden just dropped the price?
No, it didn't used to be better. It's always been bad, and it's always been an uphill battle.
Yeah. All right. So, besides touring, let's talk a little bit more about performing live, because every artist I've had on before, I've always asked them the same question. We've gotten somewhat the same answer, but I just love to hear it. When you perform live and you kind of get what people talk about, like that high from the people vibing off of you, and just knowing that, you know, you're providing something special for them, and knowing that even if it's that half hour that you're on stage, you're doing something and that's just making these people's lives. What kind of a special feeling is that, and how much does that mean to you, and especially as a band too?
It means a lot. I think the best experience is when I'm singing live and someone in the audience is singing along.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the best feeling. I can't really describe it, but I don't think that I've had a better feeling than that ever.
So how special is it too, since you write the music, that you're singing songs that you wrote that are kind of like, people always talk about how they're kind of like their babies basically, because they write it, they cultivate it, they practice it forever and ever, and then they release it to the world. How extra special does it make that feel, knowing that you wrote the music?
It's cool. I like it. It's not good for my ego. It makes me arrogant, but I do enjoy it. I write a lot of songs. I think Hollow Records, by the end of the year, I think we'll have 100 unique songs released, all by me.
Wow. That's busy.
Yeah, so it's busy.
How did you come up with the name Hollow Records? Did that just pop into your head, or is there a specific reason behind that?
3. Okay. My middle name is Holloway, and I love my middle name.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be tied to my name somehow, without it being obvious that it was tied to my name, because that would be lame.
Yeah.
The second reason is because I kind of want it to be like edgy.
Yeah.
And there's something about being hollow inside that is kind of edgy.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of want a nod to that. And then the third reason is conspiracies. The logo is a moon that you can kind of see through inside of, and there's stars. And Hollow Records is a direct reference to the concept of conspiracy theories, and the logo is a reference to the hollow moon conspiracy theory. Yep. Not so much that Hollow Records stands for or believes in the hollow moon conspiracy. Rather, it's supposed to just create this like incognito, like mysterious kind of like ambiguity about the logo and brand. That's what I was kind of going for. It really doesn't mean anything more than that.
Absolutely, and I think it totally worked. When I saw that logo, I was like, oh man, that's so cool. So when it comes to writing music, what is your process for writing songs? Do you take it from like day-to-day life, like your influences, or is it more kind of like if you see like stuff on the news, do you take it from that, or is it just like a mix in between, you'd say?
Definitely not the news ever. It's always about what's going on in my personal life. And I try to make the songs as relatable as possible. They're usually about growing up or learning from an experience, overcoming a new emotion, learning to have value in yourself, learning respect for yourself, learning to stand up for your friends, tackling the concept of making the decision to not kill yourself. Yeah. Tackling the concept of making the decision of not being domestically violent with your partner. Yeah. Those are a lot of the themes that a lot of the songs that I talk about involve.
Those are so important. And does that, so like all that sort of like mental health, we could just categorize it as, and like physical abuse, does that how much does that mean to you? Like, have you ever had people come up to you and say, like, your song really helped me, like, your song really kind of helped me get through trauma? Or have you ever had that experience?
Yeah, I have. It's a really cathartic experience when someone reaches out and says that a song that you wrote helped them a lot. Yeah. And that's definitely why I wrote the music. I wanted it to not just be for me, although the music is very much for me. Yeah. I wanted the music to also be for other people too.
Oh, absolutely. So, what would you say is the key to writing a catchy song? Like, what would you say is a must-have to write a song that you think is going to go either viral or just really catch off? What would you say is the main thing to do?
Verse, chorus, bridge, solo, chorus, or get the fuck out.
So how much does rhyming play a huge part in the songs that you're writing for any of your bands, or is it mainly just getting lyrics that you like want to be like descriptive enough for the audience, or do you also like to have the audience kind of like have a story presented to them? What is your main thing?
So rhyming is important because it makes it easier for the person listening to remember on the first listen. Mm-hmm. And if you've done a chorus correctly, you can make the audience sing along to a chorus they've never heard of before, ever, midway or at the end of the song.
Yeah.
That's why you do the chorus twice at the very, very end of pop structure songs, so that if someone had already listened to the chorus twice and then a third time at the end, and then it's going to double up and play a fourth, by the time it plays that fourth time, now they're singing along. Yeah. That's the point. Yep. And it actually works. And rhyming is a part of that, but there's a couple creative tricks you can do. You can make words that don't rhyme by making the melody the same. If you can make the melody match, you can do what I call melody rhyming, where you make the melody stay consistent. And even if the melody is using a word that doesn't necessarily 100% match or rhyme, you can make it sound like it's rhyming, or have that memory effect on your audience of, oh, I know what he's saying and I know what he's going to say next because of that consistency and adjacency in sound.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're releasing songs, do you have like any idea like of what order you're going to put them in an album? Do you kind of just put them in randomly, or is there like a strategy, like maybe like put the best songs first, or is it just kind of random?
I make it flow like a book.
Yeah.
There's got to be a dynamic flow to it. So there's got to be an intro, there's got to be a middle, there's got to be a denouement, and there's got to be an end.
Yeah. So when you're also writing, do you ever sometimes just write a song just kind of for you, just kind of like you know the behind the scenes of the lyrics and you know like what it's about, and you just kind of wanted the audience to just like enjoy the music, or do all of your songs are they all marketed to kind of be an audience appeal song?
If you're talking about like lyrically, they're all relatable. Mm-hmm. All the songs, I think that you could find a different meaning than what I necessarily wrote it to be in. And I kind of intended it to be that way, because when I wrote these songs for everyone, I wanted everyone to be able to relate to it and still understand what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think that I've done a good job of doing that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I obviously, your song, Remember the Summer, I really, really enjoyed. I mean, that does kind of bring back the nostalgia feeling of towards the summertime, and just, I was listening to that right now, and I'm out here sitting out in my shed, and I'm just like, wow, I got to go out and enjoy this day when I'm done with this, man. This song is really getting to me. Absolutely. So, what would you say is the one thing that you really need to do to break through, and to just, for all your bands, I mean, I know we kind of already talked about like what you think Synthwave does, but for you personally, what do you think is the one thing you need to accomplish in order to get where you want to be?
This is the most important thing. There's one thing in common with every band that didn't make it. They broke up at some point. So just don't break up.
Yeah.
If you just keep going, eventually you will find your success. If you stop, you will fail.
Yeah. Is that part of the reason why you decided to play all the instruments yourself, to kind of have the only reason you break up would be if you yourself broke up, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't want to rely on I don't want someone else to be in the way of whether or not I keep going or not.
Yeah.
So by learning every instrument, unless I die or become a cripple, and even then I'll still sing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
And even then, if you become a cripple, did you see that drummer who has the robot arm, and he's the fastest drummer in the world now?
Oh, he is? What? Do you know what band he is?
I forget what band he's in, but like his buddy is like the sickest, like IT, I'm not using the right words, but he's like the sickest, like genius, like engineer, and like he like loved this dude. They were like best friends, I guess, is kind of how the story goes. And he's like, dude, I'm going to fucking build you an arm and you're going to be the best drummer ever. You already were the best drummer ever. I don't give a fuck that you lost your arm. You're getting a new one.
Yeah.
I'm building it for you. And like, he's like working on it and like gave this dude an arm and it's all sick. And like, he controls it with his mind, like moves his like, it's legit. Like, this is like next level. And he's a drummer and he's the fastest. And it's like, it's 2018. Yeah. This is the world we live in right now.
Does it look realistic, or is it just kind of like just metal?
It looks metal. It's like all aluminum or whatever. Yeah. It's all metal.
That's cool. That's cool. Because I was gonna say if it looked realistic, it wouldn't be. But now it looks metal. That just Because I was also thinking about that Def Leppard drummer that got into that car accident in like the '80s and lost an arm, and then they just configured the drums to make it to help him out. But then I was also figuring about, like, I remember when Dave Grohl like broke his leg, they wheeled him out in a wheelchair, and then he had his broken leg out there, and he was still playing guitar. So yeah, obviously, it's one of those things where you don't need to. You can still produce quality music, and you can still be good even when you're impaired. So I mean, that's one of the positives. So. Besides playing music, like you said, you have your other job. At what point would you think that you would be able to quit your other job and then become a musician? At what point would you say, like, I'm stable enough where I can just focus on music?
No, I would never do that.
Never? Yeah.
Yeah, I love my job.
Yeah.
My job involves helping homeowners buy homes and helping them refinance homes. And I'm a finance professional, so I would never walk away from that job. I'm fortunate enough to have the ability to work from my laptop. So I do have the ability to take my mortgage career with me that I work by day, and I can take that on with me on tour and be a rock star by night. That's actually my ambition, is to be a mortgage finance professional by day, which is what I am, and a rock star by night. That's my ambition. And I already run a mortgage firm pretty much on my own, and I do pretty much everything, and it makes really good money, and it helps invest in like all the music stuff that I'm doing. And without this career path that I've built for myself in mortgage, I wouldn't have been able to achieve all the things I'm achieving with my record label, Hollow Records, because truth be told, Hollow Records isn't a profitable record label at this point. At this point, I've spent all of my money building it. And because we're brand new right now, we've invested like tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars into all the different songs and brands and videos and everything that's gone into it. We're still growing right now. It's going to take a long time before we ever recoup our costs back. It could take us 5 years to recoup our costs. And sometimes that's how long it takes to build a business if you're aiming for the top. But I'm okay with waiting because I have a really comfortable career path that allows me to work at my pace and be as aggressive as I have been.
Yeah, I was gonna say that would be unbelievable if like if you guys became like super famous and then you were still doing that as like a day job, and then they're like on ET or something like that, like so and so, Dillon is still doing his account, is he still giving people housing and stuff? That would be unbelievable. Yeah, that would be. But I mean, that's great that you found them. What point also, because I think this we kind of have a younger audience too, and they kind of like. Some of them might be kind of like stuck, not knowing what they want to do. When did you know, like, especially with your other job, when did you know that you wanted to do that? Like, what inspired you? What was your aha moment? You're like, I want to do this for a career.
It was when I hit a rock bottom, actually. So I was in the lowest point of my life, and one of my best friends, who is the guitarist of my band I Magnified, his name is Eddie Berrigan. And his brother got a job at Loan Depot, which is the second largest mortgage firm in the world, or at least the United States. But I think the world. I'll have to double check that. Let's go with the United States for now. And they're so big, and they hired Eddie's brother. And then Eddie's brother got him a job, and then Eddie got me a job. And that's where my career started in finance. I think I was about 21 years old. So I've been in finance for about 5 years. And that's when my life turned around. It went from rock bottom to being as blossoming as it is today. It's great. I have nothing but love for the industry and mortgage. It's been a great career path for me. And from that point on, from 21 on, I haven't looked back. This is the career path for me. And it allows me to do nothing but help out homeowners who really need help and really don't know what they're doing, frankly and unfortunately. And gives me an opportunity to create a living for myself while helping others.
Absolutely.
I think that's great.
And as we wind down here, what would you say is your number one piece of advice for anyone that just wants to start a band? What would you say, would be the number one essential thing that they need?
Balls.
Couldn't agree more.
Great balls of steel.
Yeah, and I also think also too they just need that will too. I mean, you're gonna have people say that you're no good. You're gonna have people say like maybe you should get a different job. I mean, unless you're just like an Eddie Van Halen or something like that on guitar, you're gonna get some people that are just gonna say, you got to just have a nice strong head above your shoulders and just gotta keep on keeping on. How have in your music career, have there been any times where you thought about quitting, but then you kind of like persevered, or have you always just been on this path where, screw everyone else who says negative things about me, I'm just going to go all the way to the top?
Yes. One time when I left the band I Magnified, we spent 4 years to record a 6-song EP and released it, and because we didn't know what we were doing, it didn't do very well.
Yeah.
Even though we were all extremely talented and still are. Now that we know what we're doing more on social media, we're going on to release another album, and I Magnified is very popular. Our playthrough videos are getting like 80,000 plays on Facebook. It's ridiculous. Yeah. The view count is really high for technical death metal. It's not common for a technical death metal video to get 80,000 plays on Facebook in a month. It's not a genre that people like to listen to. Yeah. But because there's not screaming over it and it's just like guitar videos with drums and like the instruments only, I think it's working. And so at that point, when I had left that band and felt it was kind of during that rock bottom phase as well, when I left that band, I really kind of wanted to walk away from music altogether because it just felt like it was too much. It was like we put in 4 years of work and all this time, and like I felt like we didn't get anything in return from it. Even though we did, it felt like we didn't get anything in return. And that feeling of being like let down and not feeling like you were rewarded or compensated in any way for your time and effort for 4 years really felt like defeat. And in that face of defeat, I felt for a moment like I wanted to step away from music forever. And then in that moment is also when I realized that instead I was just going to start learning how to play every instrument by myself and do everything by myself. And here we are.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we come to the time where I'm just going to plug the ever-living crap out of you. Where can they find your music? Where can someone find the Synthwave and all your other music from Hollow Records?
I would just start with the record label. The record label will point you everywhere nice and neat. The record label is Hollow Records, and the website is hollowrecordings.com. Okay. If you click on the artist tab on the website, it will take you to all of our signed and alumni artists on the page. If you click on their art or their view more button or their learn more buttons, it will direct you to either a hyperlink of all of their music and all of their social media, or a hyperlink to their actual website if they have one, such as inertiatherockband.com for Inertia and hollowkings.com for Hollow Kings.
Yeah. So, and would this also be the place where bands who might want to get in contact with you would be able to get you then too? Just go to your website?
Yes, hollowrecordings.com is going to be the place to go.
Absolutely. So
there and a forum as well for you to interact with.
Absolutely. So everyone who, if you have any interest, if you want to get represented, if you're an up and coming band, go to Hollow Records. I mean, if you listen to the music that especially the synthwave music that I've listened to, it's some good stuff, and I really think that these guys are maybe a year or so away from really taking off. I mean, they just got to get their brand out a little bit more, but I mean, they have the patience and they definitely have the attitude, so I think that they are definitely something that you should be looking for in the future. I'll also post a link down below where you can find them on Facebook, you can find them on YouTube. I'll be posting all those links, and if they have any tours coming up, you let me know, okay, if you have any tours coming up, and then I can let the people know on here. And if you're ever in the Minneapolis area, definitely let me know, because I mean, you have at least one fan here now, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, it was great having you on the podcast. You're more than welcome to come back again if you want to plug like a tour or anything that you're on. So it was great, man, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. It was great, and thanks for having me.
No problem. All right.